What is going on, everybody? We are on day 36 of the Hindrances to Revival in the local church. And today is day 36. 4 more days left. And today we're focusing on pull back and push away. Mark 9:29, and he said unto them, This kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. If we truly desire revival and spiritual awakening to occur in our churches and our nation, we must call time out to pull back and push away from the clamor of this sinful world that we're living in. Hindrances to revival in the local church are real. The church is under spiritual attack from within and without. There is a spirit that has crept into countless churches and affected them with the ways of the world. In Mark 9, Jesus' disciples were unable to cast out an evil spirit from a young boy who had lost his mind and the ability to control himself. In Matthew 10, Jesus told his disciples they would be given a supernatural power to handle such an evil. However, the disciples in Mark 9 were powerless and unable to accomplish what Jesus had instructed them to do. Following Jesus' instructions, it's not always as easy as it appears. Doing what Jesus does is more than just talking the talk. His disciples had to learn true obedience involves 2 distinct disciplines, prayer and fasting. Prayer is the key ingredient whenever we see the need to pull back. That's the key ingredient, to pull back. Pulling back does not mean that we're quitting. It means we are allowing God to step in and take authority through sincere prayer. More times than I can imagine, and I've learned this the longer that I go down the road, how true this really is, that there are times where you don't need to quit, but you need to pull back. Let the clamor and the banging of the emotions and all of our self-will and all of the noise, to just let it calm for a minute. And to pull back with love and joy and compassion so that we could properly assess it, properly assess the situation, properly assess our involvement, properly assess what is the best course that God has for us going forward. And it takes pulling back sometimes, praying about a situation, getting away from the hustle and the bustle of the moment, the hustle and the bustle and the demands of the situation, and pull back just enough in prayer, saying, God, I want to know what is your wisdom concerning this thing, and going towards that with a prayerful heart. Prayer is the key ingredient. It means we're allowing God to step in and take authority through sincere prayer. Not only did Jesus' disciples need to pull back, but they also had to push away. When we push away, we engage the spiritual discipline of fasting, which is hand-to-hand combat and warfare on a whole other level. It's time for the church to learn how to pull back and push away so that revival can begin. Souls are waiting on us to push back and to pull away. We are living in urgent times, and we must have God's wisdom, and we need to know when the times are for us to push back and to pull away. Push back from the table, saying, I don't need that. And to pull away, meaning pulling away from a moment, going to be with the Lord. Not in a physical place where you got to go to some remote area, but maybe in the moment you're just quiet. There's times where I've had people that will observe me being just quiet and peaceful. I'm not a person that likes a lot of empty space. I like the space to be useful. But there are some times that empty space is the most useful. Sometimes I've learned that it's the empty space where you can analyze and not rush. There's times where I'll just sit there and I'll analyze someone who may be going off the deep end, or I'm in a situation where something's getting erratic and wild and crazy, and I'll have those that say, you have to handle this, you better take care of this, you'd better do this, or you'd better do that. And in those times, I just walk in and I don't say anything, but I'll walk in and I'll peacefully assess what's going on. What am I doing? I'm pulling back. In that moment, I'm pulling back. I may be in a room full of people, but I'm pulled back. I'm not going in with guns blazing, ready to just, wreak havoc. There's times you got to know when to pull back, when to just slow down for a moment and just be at peace and not erratic like everybody else. But it's in times of prayer that you pull back. That's what I do in those moments. I'm assessing, I'm communicating. Father, help me to say the right words here. There's a lot of lives that are involved here, and I want to make sure that each and every one of them get their fair share of blessing and love here. And I don't want to be unbalanced, and I want to make sure that I'm what you want me to be in that moment. I'll just pull back and I'll wait. And times where it almost gets awkward because they're waiting on me to insert and I don't. Not because I'm without something to say, but I need to make sure that what's said comes from Him. That's called pulling back. Whenever things are getting wild and you've got momentum going on and you're in an argument maybe with your spouse and things are getting heated or whatever, sometimes you just need to pull back and just sit still and say, God, I need you here because I don't want to hurt the ones that I love. And I don't want this thing to continue going in the direction that it's going. And when you learn to pull back, that's when you are truly getting rid of hindrances to revival in your life. Knowing when the moments are to be at peace, not to be numb, not to be ignorant, but to say, Lord, I want what you want here. And I'm afraid if I keep talking that I'm going to talk myself right out of your will, and I certainly don't want that. So I'm just going to pull back. I'm not going to distance myself like from the crowd. I may stay in the crowd, but I'll pull back and not be given to any whimsical direction this way or that way and blow like the Bible says, like a reed in the wind. But I'll find poise and I'll find that posture of learning to just pull back for a minute and then push back. Maybe skip a time where you would normally feed your flesh, stop and say, Lord, I want to hear from you clearly. And you take that opportunity to further getting the flesh under control so that you can have greater impact in those pullbacks. The pushbacks give you greater impact in the pullback. See, it's whenever you're keeping your flesh under control in the pullback when you really have a clarity that's unique. And so they go hand in hand. It's that moment of pullback, that moment where you can kind of disengage. It's in those moments where you can get clarity or decisions that can help you to maybe create those opportunities in fasting to create and say, you know what, I think it's time for me to go on a fast. And then whenever you make that decision to go on the fast, then it brings a clarity to your pullback. They work hand in hand is what I'm trying to get at, is they work hand in hand. So let God lead you and learn how to get to that space where you just hit the moment, the pause button in the moment and say, Father, you know, I'm trying to get worked up, but I'm not going to. I want to keep my flesh under subjection. And I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to get that hindrance of revival out of my life for good. God bless you.